Well, well, yeah, you probably are. We're getting loads of people who don't like basically their politics that they use on that, so they're joining us instead, which is great.
Yeah.
Right. Yay! So I'm now online, and I would just like to ask: is there any news today, please? If we can crack on with that. First of all, Kate, any news from you?
No, not really. No news.
By the way, Ruth,
Yeah.
you've got to have news now, because I'm doing something in the background, whether you like it or not. So,
I've got some lovely news.
Right, okay. First things first, none of us are interested whether you're pregnant or not. So let's carry on. Moving on.
No, I went to Bamborough Castle. What is it called?
Bamborough Castle.
Bamborough Castle.
In Scotland? I thought that was in England.
Northumbria.
Yeah, it's in Northumbria.
Oh, right, yeah. Well, I got the location sort of right.
Wow.
You know, England's a big place.
The island.
I was blown away.
Well, hang on. Yeah, blown away. Right. Pretend I'm
Lindisfarne, isn't it?
Yeah. It looks over Linda's farm.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So pretend we're all blind, which wouldn't be a nice thing at all, but pretend we're all blind and describe what the castle's like.
The castle is beautiful. It is absolutely humongous. It goes from one end to the other end and you can't see the end. It is all in like orange sandstone, I believe. Don't quote me.
Okay.
I went in and looked at the castle and was looking all around, and you're allowed to go in.
Yeah, go on.
Well, we walked in and we had a talk on the family who have owned it over the centuries and who did what. But what I was more interested in was the artifacts they had. They had everything. And it took me 2 hours instead of 20 minutes to go round.
Oh God, I bet you Leatherboy was pissed off, was he?
Oh, I got to tell you now. The ceiling was done in wood.
Yeah.
And as he explained to me, it was just done with dowels. It wasn't, anything but dowels. It was absolutely out of this world. And you could go around the whole house and they had where they used to play cards and everything. But they also had the old stuff, And I was just amazed by what they had. And I would go there again.
Can I just ask you like a little question?
Yeah.
Was it privately owned? Was it owned by the council or the National Trust or English Heritage?
No, it's still owned by the family.
Oh, right. So they're doing their own thing. Right. Yeah, we like that.
It's still owned by the family, and they've actually got a dig going on. They do every year.
Is that the one at Lindisfarne, or they've got one on their grounds?
No, it's on the actual castle. And they've got down and they think they found the well to it, and that's what they're excavating.
Oh, fab.
But they finished for this year and they'll be going back again next year. They do it bit by bit. Got you. And it was a joy to see, because it'll stick in my memory forever.
Good. Well, that's what you need. I was going to ask. So, right. Okay. No. That's. So, did you see any other places, or that was it?
That was it. I got a picture of an old post box. I've never seen one of them, like the Doctor Who ones.
Okay. Yes, of course.
Ah, nice.
I got a picture of one of them. I was just driving along. Well, he was driving along. I said, "What's that?" And I was out the window.
But was it an old RAC one or an AA one? What was it?
No, it's an old post office one.
Oh, right. What, a proper blue Doctor Who one?
Yes.
Oh my God, that would have been lush to see. I've got to be honest with you.
In the wall. There was a wall built up to it either side, because it's so old. But I got a
Oh.
picture of it. I'll send them over to you.
That would have been lovely to have seen that. Yeah, yeah. That's
Oh, it
true.
was amazing. I mean, I was only at traffic lights and I looked and I thought, blooming heck, what's that?
Oh, that's amazing.
Oh,
Cool.
mate, they've got. I mean, I was talking to people up in Haddington because I took pictures of the church and that. And the girl I was speaking to used to be in the planning office for archaeology up there.
Oh, wow.
And she said, have you seen the 2 cannonballs that hit the church? I said, no, but I didn't have time to go and see them. But
Oh,
I've learned so much up there as well.
oh no, hey, there is one thing about it, right? At least you managed to see something this time.
I know.
Anyway, thank you for that, Ruth. We're going to
That's
crack on,
okay.
but are you definitely interested in this thing that we've got on a Monday, as in September?
Yeah,
Right. Okay.
I do nothing
Okay.
on a Monday. So,
Okay. We'll sort that out. Right. Okay.
yeah, we'll
Right.
sort that out.
Anything from you, Richard, and Pete? Peter first. Pete.
No, nothing for me.
Okay. Right.
Oh,
And
I'm the same.
right.
Nothing for
Okay.
me,
Okay. Right.
nothing
Good.
new.
Nothing new. Nothing
No.
new. Right. Okay. We're gonna get onto it now. And right, no Anne today because she's visiting her mum her mother-in-law in the care home. So that's what's happening today.
Yeah.
And no, and oh, there's no Kathy because she's decided to not be with us today because she's gone to the Glamorgan show,
Wow.
which I didn't know was on today, but it's always on a Wednesday, isn't it? So so it's the Glamorgan show today. Right. So those that will be in the know will know that in the Baron District this week we are looking at the Llandough preaching cross. And when I say preaching cross, it's not really that at all. But I just wanted to talk about this and to give you a little bit more information than I've published in the Barry District News. Right, so I don't know what Kate's doing in the background, but
On the
is she talking?
phone.
Right, okay then. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mute you. I'm going to mute you, unfortunately. So I'm just trying to get the mute button, and we're gonna hang on. Hang on a minute. Mute, and mute. Good. Okay, excellent. So let's go back to where we were, and I've got to find out where we were. Right. Okay. So, have you guys all seen this? Do you know where we're talking about? Does this ring a bell? Richard, Peter?
No, but I see it's got the Celtic knot on it.
Right. Don't get obsessed with get more obsessed with the differences of the knots, Peter, rather than a Celtic knot, because you can actually see that there's more than just
the
one
figure of 8
design
knot is there 3 times. Yeah.
There's actually a lot more, so you can see that. So for those that are not familiar with this site, what we're just going to do, we're going to go straight onto Google, right? So we have officially started, and what I'm going to do is try to set the scene to sort of drag you in a little bit to a little bit more of the history. So it's quite an easy site to find. So if you're looking for images of this site, you can just type in Urbic, right? And you can see immediately there Urbic cross. So if you just type in Urbic, see what we come across, right? Urbic. Okay, we've got a place in Iran, right? So if we put Urbic cross, you will see that it comes up on the second choice. Now, what we've got is, this itself isn't as big as it looks. In fact, it's fairly small, really, but it's a very, very important monument, and it stands out when you see it. Yeah, you've got to sort of look a little bit in the church graveyard, but you will see it towards the right, a little bit towards the right of the entranceway into Llandough Church. And the name of Llandough Church is St. Docdoy. Now, this site itself, and if we sort of go on to this image, this monument itself is basically what's left of a very important, fascinating, very historical landscape. And if I want to put it in a nutshell, towards the late 1970s, there was a Roman villa basically within stone shot from this. Behind the church, on the left there, in the 1990s, they excavated a burial ground that contained over 1,000 inhumations and cremation burials. And there was an old farm building nearby, which Pete and Richard and myself would be familiar with, which was demolished. And there was a lot more within this landscape 50 years ago, but this is all that's left. Now, what do we know about this monument? Basically, what we know about this monument is what you see, right? There's not much else to it other than what we see. So what we do come with today is references to a book that I've got in front of me that was published in the 1880s, and in this book from the 1880s, the first carved monument that the author talks about is this one. So in the top of the book, on basically the first page, this monument stands out in the guy's history of the whole of Wales and its carved monuments. So that tells you of the importance of this moment in time, this postcard in time, this memorial is it in time. Now, one thing that I was doing last night in my lecture, and the last night's lecture only went on till 6 minutes past 10 rather than 10:30. So we finished a bit early, Pete. This one thing I was saying last night is when we look at monuments, we can sometimes go with what's published about them and think nothing more other than that. But when you actually start looking into this artifact deeper and deeper and deeper, it brings up many more questions and answers. So without reading anything in front of me, without reading anything from 1845, without reading anything from 1856, other than what I've got written on this page, we don't know anything else, like other than the monument in front of us, except there is more. So what I'm going to do, I wasn't going to do this today, right? But I'm going to open our minds a little bit by again putting something onto Google and try to make this very relevant, right? And hopefully I'll be able to find the two links that bring this site into relevance. But before we go on to those two links, what I need to do is, for those that don't know where this monument is, and anyone else watching, let's go onto Google Maps. So let's just get onto a new tab. And if we type in Llandough Church, and if you see that Llandough Brevi in West Wales, there's some beautiful carvings down there as well. And Llandough Brevi, yes, it is a real place, other than the fact it's in Little Britain. And if we type in Llandough there, we see where Llandough is, and hopefully we'll get the Llandough that we're referring to, because there are several Llandoughs in the Vale of Glamorgan. In fact, there are 3. The other 2 are over Cowbridge Way. But there, if we go through Llandough, right? What we need to do, we see that we've got the hospital there, and we keep going. So you flow past where the hospital is. You've got the hill, hospital on the left. You keep going, and basically before you bear left, which is Leckwith Road, and you go down Llandough Hill, I wouldn't bother. It's blocked off at the bottom, I think it is still. Not sure. Where it's got Churchview Close, up until 1990, Churchview Close didn't exist because it was a burial ground. And in the early 1990s, I remember it well, 1993, they found the remains of a burial ground. And I know it well because there's a lady that's still a member of Archaeology Cymru. She still pays her dues, but nobody sees her anymore. But she's still involved, called Barbara. She was actually on the excavations there, and I didn't know years later I'd get to know this woman, but she was there excavating, and I remember it because at the time my mum was in hospital, and my mum said, "Well, where have you been?" And I said, "Oh, I went to see a burial ground," and I haven't got long to speak to you, Mum, because I want to go back to the excavations. She wasn't too impressed. Anyway, so that's where it is. So if we zoom out, we know where it is now. You can get there on the bus. And I tell you what, it's just, Kate, Ruth, if you ever go out there, Richard, Peter, and the other mob or anyone else watching, if you do go, the church is disappointing because it's fairly modern. It's been rebuilt. But the monument itself is just well worth going to see by itself. And one thing I'm personally learning now, right, is that I'm instead of having a massive list in my diary of 50 things I need to do in a day, I'm basically saying I'll do those 2 things and and bugger everything else. So I'm actually appreciating things more and getting more out of individual things like this. And just a bit of wisdom there. So what we're going to do, we're going to type in the word Llandough Roman Villa, right? And I'm wondering if there's anything on the Llandough Roman Villa. It looks like there might be, right? Are we going to see photographs of the Llandough Roman Villa? Now, before I came off that, where on the map alongside where the church is, where you've got the old Llandough hill going down the road. On the right there, that's where the villa was, right? And it's no longer there. It's a block of flats. And interestingly, guess what we've got? We've got some images of the Llandough site. No, hang on a minute. Yeah, hang on. Am I right? Hang on, have I got that right? I'm just going to make sure. I'm just going to go back a moment. And Llandough Roman Villa. Hang on a minute. I'm just going to see if that is the proper one. Ah, right. Yeah, there's Barbara in the photograph on the right. I'm just going to doubly make sure. And I'm going to make sure that this is the right image. I can cross-reference this. But this is one of the Roman sites that was excavated. I'm just going to double check that this is the right image. It'd be terrible telling you it's not the right image when it is the right image. I'm just going to make sure that this is the correct one. I'm just going to quickly look. Before we actually go any further, did anyone remember the excavations at Llandough as they were taking place?
No.
Anyone? Right, this is actually the Llandough Roman Villa, and you can actually see the level of preservation. Yeah, I got confirmation this is the Llandough Roman Villa. I've got this from a different angle. What you're seeing there is a number of rooms, and I've got the image in front of me with the digger on site, and this site itself is so close to that monument that we're looking at today that you can't not dismiss a link. Now, I didn't want to talk per se about the villa, but what I'm trying to do is give you context. I'm trying to give you meaning to the monument. And one of the things I believe is part of the monument actually belonged to this villa, right? The villa itself is not just an early villa, it goes into the 400s, probably beyond into the 500s. So the date of the stone that we're looking at today, the 4 stones that we're looking at today, because it's made up of 4 individual Sutton sandstone type stones, because I don't believe they're all Sutton sandstone, right? I believe one of the stones actually related to this villa. And so the other thing to actually get context is another image. I wanted to talk more about this site, but we're talking about the stones, so we can come back to this again. You can see how well preserved the archaeology is here. And there was a great controversy at the time. They wanted to save this from demolition. Unfortunately, they decided to build a block of flats on it. And there was a lot of controversy at the time between the owners, which I do believe were actually BP, and the person who was a tenant of the land. And anyway, we don't want to go into that. But what we want to do, we want to see the link. We want to see the link between this site and the monument. So to get context again, what I'd like to do is I would like to remind you of this is actually at the back of the church. And Peter, there's Barbara on her hands and knees excavating. And Peter, who's met Barbara dozens of times, will know that Barbara looks exactly the same in that photograph as she does now. And there's Barbara excavating. And again, there's the church there, right? There's the church. And basically, if you leap over the archaeologists and you leap over the wall, and you run a little bit further on, you come back to this carved monument. Again, giving you a sense of context, right? So now I've painted a picture. Now what I'm trying to do today is I'm trying to give you bits of information so that you can make up your own mind on the monument without having to believe everything I'm saying, right? So let's move back to that image. And what we might do is before we go to, if again, we go back and we type in Urbic cross, and lots of the times when you look at some of these images on the internet, they're probably mine. But there you go, there it is. And you can see there are obviously 4 sides to it, right? And again, looking at different angles. And one thing for me, when you look at an image like this, it clearly looks precarious, right? That's me said. So back to the book, it refers to this in Glamorganshire it was first visited in 1845 by the author, and then eventually the work started to come into publication in 1856. So the base and fragment of the shaft of the cross represented in this first plate of this work must, when complete, have been the most elegant example of the kind in Wales. Now, initially, it's talking about the base, which is that's the base there, and it's talking about the shaft. Well, the shaft itself is in 4 sections. No, start again. The shaft itself is in 3 sections. The overall monument is in 4 sections with a base. It stands in the churchyard of Llandough near Penarth. That's where I put into this the original name. Well, the name dedicated is St. Docdoi's Church. St. Docdoi Church. So that's irrespective of anything else, really. St. Docdoi's Church. Now, this is on the right of the entrance, or described in the book to the southwest entrance of the church, and is about 9 feet in height from the base. From the base, it's 9 feet in height. Now, The red herring comes in the next long sentence. The upper part of the shaft and the head of the cross being broken off, and probably, as I was told on the spot, either rolled into the river at the bottom of the hill or buried in a mound of rubbish on the south side of the churchyard, or broken up for household purposes by the villagers. The base and shaft are quadrangular, with the angles rounded and forming semicircular columns, which is in that knotwork that Peter mentioned at the beginning. And the author says, and the author's name is John Obadiah Westwood. So the author, on his first visit to Llandough in 1845, said the block on which the base rests was sunk in the ground. But in 1856, it had been raised. Now, that's where the red herring comes in immediately. The monument has been moved, has been re-erected. And that, for me, is a clue to the very origins of this monument and the mixed origins of the monument. You can actually see inscriptions there. That spells the word Urbic. And you can clearly see that the carvings on this monument are very different throughout. It's almost as if 4 stonemasons have been at work, right? And we don't want that. It's almost as if 4 stonemasons have been at work on this monument. So as we look there, you can clearly see that the style on the bottom is different from the style on that shaft, is different from the boss above, and the 2 shaft sections are completely different from each other. So that, for me, tells me one thing, that this monument is being reconstructed out of not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 separate monuments, meaning, for me personally, in 4 different styles, that there was at one time 4 great monuments within the area of this church graveyard. Or, as I would like to say, even making it more confusing, that there were 3 monuments, and one of the monuments, the base part, was actually to do with some kind of Roman column arrangement in regards to the Roman villa that we've just discussed about a few moments ago. So why is the graveyard, and what we will do, we will go at the line drawing now. Why is the graveyard that we've looked at relevant to this monument? And it's massively relevant to this monument because it's very likely that the monument itself is greatly associated with lots of the people who have been excavated within that church graveyard setting. Now, we can't say any more than that, but we can, but maybe that might be for another day, because in September, we're continuing with our Monday archaeology class, which has got a completely different group of people than the other 3 classes that I teach. And one of the subjects that we will be looking at is the relationship that this cross has with the Roman stroke early medieval site at Dinas Powys. So I don't want to say any more than that, but the burials are quite important. Back to this monument. On the base, there are 4 different sets of sculptures. Now, on the left-hand side, there's an image of a head, like just a head. It's really faded. It's a really faded head. And it's usually, that's the one that people don't take photographs of, but we've got photographs on file. Now, carrying on, if we zoom in a bit more, we can start to get an idea of the 3 sets of carvings on the base. Now, the red herring also is that this has been sort of, as it goes in my notes, the base rests and was sunk in the ground, so it had to be raised and repositioned. Maybe it was around this spot or close by, but the point is it would have all had to have been taken apart to be repositioned, because it is 4 separate sections. Engineering wise, That's what I would have done. This was then placed on some kind of platform by 1856. Now, as we look, you can see the remarkable sculpture of a man on a horseback with knotwork on the front face. So what you can say is that there's weird knotwork. And this is very similar to knotwork that is actually found within the carvings at Coy Church in the well, on the border of Berwick, Morgan and Bridgend. And it's got very similar carvings to that in relief, embossed in there in relief.
The
So
knotwork shows never ending.
the
Never
never
end is never ending. That's the part of the work of the knotwork, to show that something is never ending.
And where does that come from in my lectures, Pete? Way back in the Neolithic period. It's something, as Pete's right in saying, it's something that's repeated throughout our history. And Peter, you know, I know we've had fun over this over the years, but there's a serious side to me with the word Celtic and Celts. And the reason why I object to that terminology is that lots of historians and archaeologists use it to basically say, oh, well, the Celts come over from Europe at a certain time and gave us this art. But as you know, Pete, this art has been with us for quite some time. Yeah, that's the point. So I don't mind the term being used in an architectural sense, but it's basically like saying, Pete, what we'll do, the English have moved into Cornwall and they've given us the skill to make pasties. You've just punched me in the face, Pete. So this is the point. This is why
the English can't make pasties.
What?
The English can't make pasties.
Exactly. That's the point, Pete. That was my point. Anyway, but yeah, use the word Celtic knotwork. Use the word knotwork is fine today. So we're okay. We're using that as an architectural term. But the point is, Pete's right. It's this never-ending circle. It's this never-ending flow. Now, that's on one side, and the other thing as well is, I feel because of if we look at the shaft, that is different. You can see that knotwork is very crude compared with the knotwork there. These first two on the column, right? And this is more ornate. And there's no images or anything on it, but there's some lettering. So I believe that that's from a different monument, another monument, okay? And then you can see this here. This again, this boss itself is different again. And then Peter Revolution, look at that. Now you can't say that the person below carved that, because it's a completely different style. And you could argue back with me, you could argue, okay, what if there were 4 stonemasons creating this? Let's put my hands up and say, all right, I will allow myself to think about that, right? But what I won't think about is putting a great big massive wheel cross on top. What I might do is put a very small wheel cross on top. If this is what this was originally about as one single monument, which, as you know, my thoughts back, and I'm okay to be told I'm wrong and I've got things wrong, but I want us to challenge, because the information I've got in front of me is all I've got. There's nothing else. People can reinvent, but there's nothing else we can say other than what I've got. So it's because it makes this piece so easy. Last night, somebody mentioned something in the lecture. I can't remember exactly what the context. They said, what about this thing? And I said, well, what about everything else? Look at the problem archaeologists have got. Looking at the nest of Brodgett, we got 80,000 bits of pottery. We've got 100,000 plus different things all together to look at. With Llandough, you've got this one single thing, right? And it makes things so easy. What you've got 5 figures. Then you've got it's almost as if these 5 figures, these look like religious figures. Are they later figures? Are they earlier figures? What do these figures represent? Is this a style thing to say that actually this can't be a Roman date? This can't be of the 400-500s. It must be much later. Hands up again. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe I'm completely wrong about that. But again, this may have been recarved or reinscribed into the stone, because again, the style of carving there is different from the style of carving there, as opposed to the style of carving there. Right, so it's a lot. There's a lot of herrings to be thrown at you, and as Kate will tell us, art is never complete. It can always be added and changed and altered. Now, as with lots of Pictish art, where you get Pictish art and it's been reinscribed and changed, let's leave that idea there. I'm putting lots of things in your minds to sort of think. This itself, these 5 figures, you can see between them, each of them has got almost a trefoiled scepter, a spear. They look sort of ornamentally fleur-de-lis. Now, the shape of the fleur-de-lis or that representation has been with us for some time. So what we've got is we've got 2 other figures, and that's the one figure that looks rather crude, and I may and usually if we go back online, I think I could find the other image of the other character. So let's just sort of go back out a moment and just see if we can get the other image. It's not been over photographed, this monument, and let's just see if we can find more. And there's the figures. You can hardly see them. And let's see if we can find any more images of this. Are there any more to see? Right, and it's like there is the other one of the other figure, and what you can see there is there are bosses either side, well, carvings, there are columns either side, so that makes this even more interesting. What you can see is some other knotwork there. Again, this is different style from the other carvings on the stone, right? And we're now starting to get an idea that the 4 carvings on the base have a sense of individuality about them, and the way that they're sort of coming to us, you know. So what you can see that figure on the left there, right, which we could see that you've got 2 sort of figures, the one on the left there and the one that is showing to us, and you've got this interlaced ribbon work there, this sort of knot work, ribbon work, or whatever you want to call it. But one thing that is clear about this monument is it's really eroded over the time that the art or the sketch was actually made. You can see there's a little more detail on this, right? And the pure carving of Urbic on there. So what we can think and what we can see, and we can go to this. We can go to this boss, right? This boss for me, again, stylistically is very different from everything else we're seeing, right? And it's referred to as sort of lots of inter-ribbon patterns, and sort of cable-like, and sort of, you know, this itself, and it is very sort of ornamented, and it's again as it looks. For me, it doesn't fit. Now, unfortunately, what I should have done at the beginning of the lecture, I should have asked one of you what you feel about this monument, taken away anything that I've said, right? So Ruth, you've gone blonde, Ruth, right? You've never seen this monument again. Yeah, you've never seen it before. You've known nothing about it, Ruth. So you were faced with this monument, right? What does it speak? Oh, by the way, Ruth, you've got to get your mic on. Right, are you going to get your mic on, Kate and Ruth? Come on, I want your opinion. I want some discussion. Right, okay, I'm gonna have to come off and I'm gonna have to let you on a minute. So, right, so if we stop that share and we can get them on, and Kate is allowed to speak. Ask to unmute Kate. Hang on.
Oh, you've done it.
Am I? Oh, I'm unmuted. Hurrah!
Right, okay. I want you to take away everything I've said, every single piece of context, and we're going to bully Ruth. Right, but Ruth, you're completely bullied now. I want you to tell us what you feel about this without anything that I've said. Don't agree with anything because you can't, because you don't know anything. I want you to come to this monument.
Help me, Kate.
What do you feel? What do you see?
I cut your eyebrow.
No, I mean of the monument there. What's that saying?
One.
What's it saying?
It's saying to me, it's telling you where it's from. If you know more about it that I don't, but I have learned a bit today.
Yeah, but you don't know anything.
But it's telling me that they've put it there to, what can I say, as a monument to that style of work. But then it could have been something else on top, signifying something else.
Right.
You know,
Stop.
Is that it? You know, is it complete?
Right. Okay. You're asking the last two questions are right. Is it complete and is it right? So the known aspects of this monument, you said, is it complete? Right. Well, that's the question. The answer is no. Right.
Yeah.
And was there a wheel cross on top? So those two. So one of those questions is correct. We can't deny that question because that question is a correct question. There was something on there and it's not complete. Right. So you mentioned the other first point that you mentioned, which is a really interesting point, and I think that would tie in with what Kate may have said, is that this monument itself is almost a discussion of styles, which is actually quite a strange way of looking at it. That's what you've just said. It's absolute bonkers, right? It's complete bonkers. However, it makes complete sense. What I'm saying is complete bonkers.
Yeah.
No. Hang on. Right. Who in the past would have come up with the idea that we're going to have four people putting a monument together with four completely different styles, right, to create a monument? That sounds absolute barking, right? But in a way, it makes sense, right? Now, the other question is, I'm not going to ask you, Ruth. I'm going to bring in Kate with this, right? Kate, let's bring you in now with all the information that you've got, with the points that Ruth has made. Is my point a genuine point that this was part of four monuments, or do you accept that this could have been part of a single monument? That is basically one question. Let's have one answer.
It's become one. It's become one. My first impression of it is, my goodness, I haven't seen anything like that before around here. And
Right,
the
now,
other thing, let me give you my impression.
I want your impression. It's four bits of carving. Is it one monument or it's been put together? Now, Ruth's idea is a nice one, right? It's a nice, gentle one, okay? But the other question is correct. It's not a complete monument. We'll agree with that. Right, over to you again, Kate.
I was just struck by the carving we can see at the bottom of the man on the horse. In the photograph, looks a lot smarter than it does in the drawing. I'm dying to see it in person. It does look like it's been put together, but I would say it might be put together of four different monuments. But they put it together to tell one story, I think. And I think those five men are saints.
Now, you've actually said quite a lot, and Ruth has said quite a lot. And maybe what I should be doing is being wise and then bringing maybe one of the boys in, because that's going to be a different take, right? But what I'm not gonna do yet is bring any of the boys in, because what I want us to do, I want to put something else in here, right? And the only other major detail, right? The other major detail is the writing, right? When I wrote about this in the Baron District, I wrote about this, I wrote about this, I wrote about this, and I basically said there's more carvings towards the top because I run out of time. However, what I did mention was Urbic. And the reason why I didn't talk about the top much is because the style of carving in the top is so vastly different in
Crazy.
style to the
Mm.
carving below. It's completely a different world. It's a completely different style. That's an earlier genre. That's a later genre. It's a bit like getting normal spaghetti from an original spaghetti from a Chinese restaurant, and then coming up with a pot noodle, which is a bit more angular, a bit more shaped, and it's been completely manufactured. This has been done by hand. This has been done by another hand of somebody who's got a different way. We're all with that sort of not work ideology, right? So it's taken it further. So what we need to do, we need to go with this word Urbic, IRBIC. Now it's clearer here in here than we would get from an image, right? So this is described as characters which would have sort of been sort of typical, maybe with about the 600-700s, the Hiberno-Saxon characters, or even earlier than that, maybe 500s. But when we see this writing, it's known as the Urbic cross. Who is Urbic? What is Urbic? Has Urbic got some kind of connection with the burials or the villa, or is Urbic Saint Urbic, right? So in other words, something that I've been saying for quite a long time, that I've got to, right, what I've been saying for quite a long time, right, okay. What I've been saying for quite a long time is what religion existed in Wales before the Normans got here. We know it was Christianity. Was it a monastic-based Christianity? The answer is yes. Right, okay. How did that Christianity play out? Was there like monthly cells like the Franciscans and so on? And the answer is no. There were individual saints with a small cell of monks around them, like we believe. Now the other factor I'm chucked in here is the idea that the villa itself may have started off in its later stages. Oh, is it started off is the right term? Right. May have ended, but started off as the first monastic site at Llandough, because, you know, so that would tie around with a native saint. Say, is Saint Doctoy the original saint, or is Urbic the original saint, or is Urbic a completely different name that we don't really understand or transcribe with the surrounding landscape? I would like to feel that there would have been more carvings on this stone with lettering, right? More lettered carvings. So Urbics are just a little bit sort of Urbic Phyllis, is it made by me or the son of, or you know, the usual Latin text that we have is Urbic, the be all and end all. It seems quite strange that you've just got a single word on this, but this is similar to some wording that you actually find at Coychurch, where there's another name of an obscure individual, look at which is a saint, which is Ibisor. Right, now that sounds a bit weird. Ibisor, that doesn't sound like a native saint. That's the one at Coychurch. And the carvings at Coychurch, some of them, the earlier stuff at Coychurch, looks very similar to the carvings that we actually see at the bottom. That's very similar to the stuff at Coychurch, which is quite some miles away. Anyway, the final point is then we will come over to the boys. Is that if we look at the monument itself and we sort of try to read the monument, we see this, and the columns are the angles of the shaft that you can actually see above a plane, but the columns below are actually very, very complicated. And the one at the top, more detail, this is ornamented ribbon patterns of different design. Now, what I've done is completely ignored the one on the left and the right, right? But what you can see, the one on the left and the right is actually quite freaky, because it's not anything that you would come across. So if we chuck in with that's not normal, because that's not normal, Pete, because that is ending. There's a start and an end to that. Whereas the one on the left and the one in the center it's never ending. So the one on the right does end. It begins and ends, which is quite frightening. That is an odd carving. This is full of odd carvings, to be honest with you. But that is by far the oddest of the carvings on here, because it's completely somewhere else. It's over there, right? So again, when we think about carvings on here, I would not feel that somebody would carve that. I'm not. It's because it's like what I know. Pete, I'm good at carving knotwork, but what the hell is this about? I don't know. Right. So when we think of all this, when we think of we're going back to some sizes, the basal block is 13 inches high, and it talks about the middle section itself is 20 inches, right? And this is 42 inches, and that's 30 inches. So it's all been measured. So to give you an idea of size again, 13 inches tall. The base looks a lot taller than that to me. 42 inches. The shaft, the sort of the guts of this. That boss itself that does stand out a lot more, but it's only 20 inches. And then the one on top is 30 inches, which to me looks longer. So that's the information that we've got on this monument, but a hell of a lot to go by. And you can actually see the idea of the cross sections. You can see that that cross section is more rectangular of that sort of second section of carving, and the fourth section of carving, there it is, and it is more regular, more linear, and square in its proportions. So it's very, very well worth looking at this monument to get a grip of it. And if you want to get some nice images of this, a website that I'm sure hardly any of you ever go to, which you pay your yearly memberships to actually sort of have up there, is actually the official website for Adva Hanes Cymru, and on there, what we've got a sites and monuments record, and there it is. So what we've got some nice images up here, taken by the hand of Moi, and I stopped updating this ages ago, but unfortunately, what we've got, the images that we do have were taken by Rosamond, and they are some mighty fine images, may I say, to end with. And then as we're waiting for that to sort of come up on the screen, Peter, I said the boys would have a chance. I don't know if Richard's mic is on, and Richard maybe put some stuff into questions. Richard, so the monument itself, what does it say to you? Do you agree, disagree with anything that's being said? Have you got a new take on it, which is different from the rest of us?
Well, it just doesn't match, does it? I think it's, as you say, 4 individual parts that were never meant to look like that.
And we're going to do it this way. And what I'm going to say is, I'm not going to say, oh, thank you for agreeing with me, Richard. I'm going to say that that's another way of saying what I've said, which is great. But I think what Richard's just said, just that image there. Oh, we got full screen now. Hang on. Where are we? Oh God.
Hello. Yes, the
Oh, there we go.
I can't Lulu without you interfering.
There we go. And hang on.
Oh, lovely.
We've got some nice images on here. And what I'm going to do is, because this is done on a small device, the point, sorry, I interrupted myself. You can see the point of what Richard's just said. You can see it from that it just doesn't go. Forget the dilated boss in the middle, right? You can see the top bit of the shaft and the bottom bit of the shaft. It is different stone.
Mm.
It doesn't gel for me. It don't gel. Just that one element, and it almost looks like, it almost looks like a sweetie shop thing. One person's going to go with the deformed wine gums, and the other one's going to go with the jelly babies. And the person who's carving the top thing is a jelly baby eater. They go for a bit more detail. There is fine detail in the bottom. Don't get me wrong. It's all greatly carved. It's fine. And also, when you think about it, right? Let's bring in that dilated boss, right? Can you see that dilated boss is far more advanced than the shaft below? It's far more accurate, it's far more carved, it's far more linear, it's far more organized, it's far more statured, it's far more interesting. No, let's not go with the word interesting. I don't want that word. But what we do have is the man on the horse. Now, what we're going to do, I've gone a bit further than I wanted to, but we are enjoying this. What we're going to do, I've got the image in front of me, right? And one thing that you can clearly see is that we've got no stirrups on here. We've got reins, but this image itself is massively faded, and the figure 8 above the rump of the horse has almost faded away, which tells me, for me, this monument itself, what they should do is not move it to St. Fagans, not move it to the National Museum of Wales, right? They should have this with a protective a perspex box around it with a little gate that you can go and see, that you've actually got very similar to monuments that you've actually got in Scotland, where you've got the pictured stones. Whatever they do with this, or move this into the safety of the church, anything, but this needs protection now, right? And those figures there, actually, right? Actually, these figures themselves are very different from the figures that you've just seen in
Yes,
the
they are.
illustration.
There's more of them.
No, there isn't.
There's still
no, hang on a
5.
minute. Stop. There's still 5, but it looks like there's more of me. I'll go with that. But there is still 5. There's still 5. Because on either side, you've got
That's
like
just the
this sort of
edge.
column on the
Yeah.
I
left,
can
on the
see your
right.
face though.
Yeah, those are columns.
Those are columns on the left and the right. But I see what Kate's saying. I see what Ruth's saying. There's more detail, and there is more detail. These colours are more pronounced. The lines going down the tops are met with a different undulation of horizontal lines below. And these are not linear. No, what I mean, these are not symmetrical, as we saw in the illustration. They're different sizes. It's almost as if you've got one there, a little sort of, the second one along looks like little sort of, I don't know, smaller than the rest, right? And then the one on the end looks quite thin, right? And the first one looks quite fat, right? And there's a little bit of a space between the first one and the second one, right?
It's a family.
Are we thinking of this in a religious way, or are we thinking, now if this is to do with the Roman villa, right, it would clearly maybe represent a family, and that's what the other heads would represent. Now, the other than hang on a minute, other than presuming that image looks religious, right, the other images don't. Right, and overall, where does religion come into the monument at all? It doesn't. Right, for me, there's no Christian symbolism at all with this monument. Right, we're presuming it's Christian. We're presuming it's part of a wheel cross. We're presuming everything that we want to presume. But I'm gonna take a stab and say, is it truly a Christian monument? And that is. Hang on a minute, you couldn't really see it. You've got to go and see the monument. That's the head, that's the bust, that's the individual bust on the side that you can't see, right? It's really faded. You need to go and see the monument. And if we go and look at that now, you're tailing up, and it's almost as if you almost go. And the other thing as well is, right, I'm going to say it if nobody else is going to say it, right? The carving above looks newer than that there, because the carving above is more clearer than that carving.
It's sharper, yeah.
It's sharper above than it is that. Now, therefore, if you want to go back and think about my words, agree or disagree with my words, You could actually go, maybe the monument's been added to, and that ties in with the silly thing that Ruth said, which wasn't silly at all. Ruth said about, we've got these carving styles put together, maybe it's been added to, right? Maybe this is the thing, but I believe that this is part of 4 completely separate monuments. Go and see the site. That's me done today. And that was definitely on the edge there.
Brilliant.
So what I might do next week,
To me, that was 2 completely separate monuments.
Yeah.
Come on, Pete.
One sat upon the other.
We've got to go back. We've got to go back. I want to see what you're seeing, right? I want your eyes on this one. We've got to go back, unfortunately, Pete. Right. So you've said something there. I want to know what you're saying. What do you mean? That was
I'm
so
saying there are 2 completely different monuments. One sat upon the other. What was meant to have been on top of the lower one, I don't know. But obviously it doesn't end there. There was something added to it which has been removed for some reason, and then the other is a completely separate monument.
Oh my! Do you know what? Right. Do you know what? Right. Okay. If we take away the wonderful knotwork on the bottom plinth, so you've got start again on the bottom shaft. So you've got the plinth at the bottom and the shaft, the one at the bottom. If you take away the knotwork, right, and you take away that sort of that boss, the dilated boss above the 3rd carving, and you take away the shaft above, right? If you put the bust of an individual directly above the word Urbic, and you put that in the Roman villa, that would make sense. Because what we have, if we look around the Roman world, you would have a plinth, which would be carved. You might have a shaft, and above that you would have the bust of somebody, and directly underneath you'd have writing. That's an antique way of looking at that. So if you take what Pete said, that would make more sense. So the name Urbic's referring to an individual, and one of the carvings on the base represents the image of the individual's bust that was actually shown above the word Urbic. That may be absolutely sounding nuts, right? But if we go back with the context that we are trying to chuck this into the Roman villa context, which is nearby, whoever was responsible for this site. So if we think about, I'm going to try and type in the word plinth. That's that is really, I've never thought of it that way. Plinth and Roman bust. Right, see what we come up with. See if anything that I'm saying makes sense. Right, okay, so right, here we go. Images. You can see what I'm saying, can't you? Something like this with a bust on top. Not really showing what there, bingo. If you take that monument and you make the finery at the bottom, and you have the lower shaft, and you put lettering there, right, and you put a bust above, right, that's what I'm talking about, right? And there's nothing in this having any names there, but that's the type of thing. We know busts existed in Roman Britain. We know they existed. We know that they were about. And actually, these are all Corinthian styles. This is the type of thing I'm talking about. Maybe a bust like that, but a little bit less ornate, right? That's my idea. That's where my idea is flowing, right? So I like that one, right? So right, anything else you want to say to that, Pete, before we move on to somebody else?
No, that's exactly the way I was seeing it. Yeah.
I'm glad you were seeing it, because I never saw that, and I'm glad you showed me that. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to I like what you've said, right? But then I would like to say that the top section, if you do something completely different with this image, which I'm going to do now, right? We're going to do this now. And we're going to put this the other way round, right? And we're going to do this. Does that work?
No.
It might not work. It might not work. But what I'm talking about, not the carving underneath, right? Just think about another shaft. But that works better.
That works
That
better as
works.
a column top, for sure.
Yeah, a capital. That looks better because what we've got, if we get rid of the word Urbic there, because none of that's above, from that looks better as a capital. Forget about the shaft. You now know that the shaft below don't work. That don't work. Okay. What I'm trying to do is give us an example. But that looks better as a capital. Now, there's a few things in there. Right. Richard. Right. So what we're going to do, we're going to revert. And anything else you want to say, Richard?
Well, a lower piece, as you say, if you took a piece off there, they have quite a few sort of carved stones like down in Chester, which were virtually like household altars.
Yeah.
You know, they weren't a big wide table, it was just a small column.
Yes.
So, you know, say to me, it could be completely, you know, could be 4 different monuments.
Mm.
You know, it's.
Carry on.
I've seen pictures of it, I'm sure I've seen a picture of it. I think when it was first discovered, and I think it was in the church at one time, which is where it should really be now. It should be out of the weather.
Yeah.
It's just getting destroyed, isn't it?
The problem is because it's a scheduled ancient monument, the location that the monument is actually placed is a scheduled ancient monument location. So to actually move it into the church, you need to get scheduled ancient monument consent. But Richard, I would really like to know whether what you've said is correct or not, whether it did actually originally lie in the porch of the church. Therefore, that would make a little bit more sense when you think about it, that you would think this being exposed outside would have a lot more erosion. So what Richard's just said, yeah, I'm just gonna yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Anyway, thanks for that, Richard. If you haven't got anything else, we're gonna crack on with Ruth. And what we want to do is see everybody's faces. So we're going to move this image from here now. So let's just see. And Anne would have loved this today. Never mind. And I'm sure Kathy would have as well. So, right, Ruth, anything you'd like to say? Oh, all we can see is Ruth as a little white blob. Right, Ruth, anything you'd like to tell us? See.
Well, couldn't it be? I mean, earlier down the bottom, it's the infinity sign, yeah? So that goes on for affinity, yeah?
Yeah.
It's a family grave, right?
Yeah.
They're going on for affinity. Could the top be added after? Because it's not an infinity, the family has all died. Got me?
Oh my God, that is just so deep. That is so deep. That is, I could argue.
That's how I see it.
So you've got the one section of work on the top, that really odd one. Let's just go back to that again. We've got to go back to that again. Yeah, I'm gonna respond as I'm gonna say, well, if that's the case, Ruth, right? And if all family had died out, who paid for the money for the carving of the stone? However, the principle, right? The principle of what you've just said, that infinity moved to a beginning and an end, which I've got like, strangely enough, I've got Viking in my head here. I've got like Scandinavian influence. I've got something. But then again, if you think about the legends of Ragnarok, it's very much recycled. It's a very much sort of, if you look at the if you look at some of the Viking carvings, that's a sense of infinity. But the actual shaping of this looks clearly Danish rather than looking sort of more into that knotwork approach that we've been discussing. So yeah, I'm liking that. I'm seeing what you're saying. Right.
Yeah. Might be a bit skew-if, but that's what I see.
That's what we wanted. That's what we wanted. Okay, thanks for that, Ruth. Right, Kate, you're the last one to have the mustard.
Oh, that odd bit there, what I do, it looks like, it looks like somebody was just finishing a side off. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That perhaps the sides were bare and they thought, well, I'll stick that in there. And it looks
Yeah.
like it's been made to fit that space, if you see what I mean. It's been
Rather-
designed to end at one end and the other. So that's what, if you were just adding decoration without understanding the symbolism, you'd just do something curvy that fit the space, wouldn't you? Or I
Yeah,
would.
that would make sense. So somebody wouldn't understand the idea of the knot.
That's
yeah,
right, but they thought they would, embellish what was a plain side. And
So
somebody
that-
on the other side had to go at making it look more knot, but you see it's much more stretched out. So it's not really the same either.
So in other words, what we'll do, we'll have a monument that's sort of in a Chinese culture, but
Yes, yes, it looks like
there's
those
been-
Chinese bronze things, doesn't it?
So actually, weirdly enough, I've drawn you to somewhere else. Actually, the author refers to this as being almost Japanese. The work at the bottom is this like the sort of weird sort of Japanesey type sort of end does not work type thing, and then you're looking there. What I was trying to say, there's no sort of cultural Japanese or Chinese influence with this at all. That's really silly. But the point is, as a metaphor, it's almost as if like somebody coming from one completely different culture, i.e. the Chinese sort of world, and then somebody from the Japanese world saying, "Oh, there's a bear face there. We'll chuck that on there," right? We've got no idea what the Chinese stuff said. We'll put the Japanese stuff on there, right? There's no link with the Chinese or Japanese, but what I'm trying to say is a metaphor, that would make sense, yeah. That would really make sense. So right, so we're gonna call off that now, and what we're gonna say is that is there anything else that anyone else wants to say?
Oh, it's been fun today.
Well, so it should be fun.
But now I have to look up what a wedding pillar is, just because it came up on one of your illustrations. It's another illustration in the corner. A Roman wedding pillar. Must look that up.
Oh, so yes, you must look up a wedding pillar. There's nothing wrong with a wedding pillar. We could all do with a wedding pillar. So Pete's going to go off and see his girlfriend this afternoon.
Ooh,
He's got a hot date in Springfields.
I won't be going to Springfield today, but yes, maybe tomorrow, maybe another day. We'll see.
Fair enough. Right. Anything else, Richard, Peter, and sort of Kate or Ruth wants to say today before we call it a day?
The knotwork appears in so many different places over such a long period. It is an important part of the entire context of the carvings on it.
Yeah.
And just to put that in a nutshell, it's all part of the human experience.
Yep.
Yes.
I've got to say something, right? I know you think I'm a silly person who's got loads of animals, but I've got my big baldric, my turkey, and I've got my baby baldric, and I thought, well, big baldric's not going to last forever. So if I teach baby baldric to be like big baldric, I'm gonna have another baby baldric, right? So I would be very upset to lose that sort of bloodstock, right? And that comes into what we've been talking about. It's this sort of never-ending circle of life. What you've got to do, Peter, you've got to continue the never-ending circle, because that's actually our only hope as humanity.
Yep.
that's right. Got to join
Yeah.
in. Do
You've
your
got to join in,
duty.
you've got to carry on. Right, so Pete, Richard, Kate, Ruth, is there anything else you want to say? And don't forget, Ruth, don't forget your shackles this week to give to Kate.
Yeah.
So okay then, well, anything else for anybody else before we finish?
No.
Oh, don't forget to join Barry past and present, the non-left wing history of Barry.
Is that on Facebook?
That's on Facebook. So what I'll do, I'll send you I'll send you the link straight after this, and I'll send it to your email.
Okay, cool,
Not,
thanks.
not your email, your phone, your
Oh, I thought of
messenger.
something to tell you.
Oh,
I
please
was,
do before we finish.
sorry.
Yeah, go on.
Oh, over at Tredegar House, I told you about that Gwyrna Clapper chambered tomb there. And they
Yeah.
say that's where this not ancient, but sort of 1400s home of someone called Ivor Hale, Ivor the Generous, and they think they're descended from him. But there's no trace of the building left. I keep worrying this, and people only go up there now to see the burial mound, and I'm thinking, well, where is the house then? They say, oh, it was there until 1680 or something like that, and people could still see the ruins in the 1700s. But there's nothing there now. Well, you and I know that if it was there, there's still something there. There's not going to be nothing. And so I'm desperate to find out, and I don't think anybody else is interested, but I'm desperate to find out, because I wouldn't be surprised to find that perhaps, the home they're thinking of was maybe 100 yards away, or something like that. But because the burial mound could have been mistaken. But I want to rule that out. But I still think that's a possibility, especially as everybody's so vague about where it was.
There's always something under our feet.
Well, of course they're going to be, because even if they said it was when it was demolished in 1680, they sold the materials. Well, they won't have dug up. I don't believe they dug up the foundations.
No.
And even if they did, there would still be some sort of something in the landscape, wouldn't there?
Yes, there would. Some kind of evidence.
Yeah, and that just tantalizes me and makes me crazy.
Well, there's nothing wrong with being crazy with history. Look what it's done to Richard, myself, and everybody else. Whilst you've been doing that, I've sent the links to the Facebook thing to all 4 of you, 3 of you on WhatsApp, and 1 of you on your, oh God, where my head's gone. One of you on normal text. So I've said that to you as you've been speaking. Right, okay then. Well, we're gonna call that a day now then. So no doubt I will see Peter on Tuesday. I will be speaking to Richard soon, because I've got a load of stuff to go through, which I've got in front of me. Well, it's there. And Ruth and Kate will be in touch as well. So if there's nothing else, we'll call it a day.
A day. Thank you.
Bye.
Nice to see
Bye.
everyone.
Take care. Thanks for joining us. Bye. So long. Bye-bye. Don't forget to click onto that thingamajig and you're in.
Cool. Thank you.
It basically says Barry past and present, not left-wing history.
Not history with an agenda. Just the truth, baby.
There's no gender. There's no agenda, man. It's just.
It does actually drive me crazy that nobody at Tredegar House is interested in where the house exactly is. Do you know what I mean? They're all quite happy to sort of, it used to be there. Nobody knows. Who cares? Sort of thing. But I suppose not all of them are as interested in the deeper history of it. Anyway, nice to see you, baby. We're off to take those photographs you require.
Oh yes, you got to get them done, man. Actually,
yeah, we're going to do it now because the sun is shining.
Do you know the promenade? Actually, I've got material on both sets of promenade. The one by the arcade and the one on the far end. So
I'll do both.
So if you did both, then that'll be 2 weeks. And I don't. Basically, it was like because the St. Helens one was like the oh God, not the rectory. It's the rectory alongside. That was built in 1920. So that just comes into my history. So I've got something on that as well. So.
Right. Oh, yes. I meant to take that as well. Yes. In fact, I went by there yesterday and there was a bunch of people standing in front of it. So I didn't think I'd take it like that.
No, it was a funeral.
That's so fun. Yes, you're right. It's probably a funeral. So,
you could have passed and said, look, I'm taking a photograph for the Barron District News.
I use that all the time. I use that. Do you know what you should call your book? Museum, Barron District.
Oh, fuck. That was
the compilation. Hmm?
Oh, that would be great.
I think that's what should be the title of the
Oh
book.
my
That's a
God, I
compilation.
see Museum, Barry and District, the compilation. Oh my God, the compilation album as it is.
That's right, volumes 1 and 2.
Oh, now come on. I'm loving it.
Yep. And
There's nothing-
you can shoehorn other things in, you see, that haven't been in there as well, of course. But it'd be nice to have it all in one place. It's got to be done for posterity, sweetie pie.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with a bit of the old posterity.
Yeah. Yes, anyway, we're off to take photographs.
Hey, go for it, baby, on the bridge, man, on the waves. And by the way, right, Ruth, who's
Hey.
buying the ice cream? Who's buying the ice cream?
Okay, love you.
Take care, man.
Bye.
Bye, love you all.
Love you all, man. Get yours today. Yours today. Oh, okay. I was just getting distracted then. So I'm just going to look in the chat. Yesterday's chat box. Oh my God. Right. Nothing in the chat box on 1, 2, number 3. Good. That's it. And we're going to say goodbye. Thank you. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Press the thank button. Any shekels. I need a few shekels at this minute to pay bills.